I used to be terrified of zippers at the beginning of my bag making journey, but I am no longer terrified, and today I am going to share with you the tips and tricks. If you're a beginner, this video is for you. Now, the reason why I love this particular zipper method, which I have not seen anywhere because this is the AV method, I have decided to name it the AV method, is because you get a neat finishing on the interior, so the bottom and the top parts are neat. Now, there's nothing wrong with your zipper tape showing, the ends of your zipper tape showing. There's nothing wrong with it, but I prefer to have a neat finishing like this on the interior of my zipper pockets. This is simple, it is easy, it is for all my beginner bag makers out there. So let us get started. Now, to get this done, we are going to need two panels. So this right here is my zipper lining, and this is the main panel. So whether you are doing it for the exterior of the bag or for the lining of the bag, you are going to need one base piece and your zipper lining piece. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have both interfaced. This is interfaced, this is not. If your fabric, or if you're using a fabric that is very soft and flimsy, you want to make sure that it is interfaced. Okay, and of course we need our zipper and zipper tape. This is not a size 5 zipper, this is like a size 7, but for the sake of today's practical, let us roll with that. So now let us figure out the math. How do we determine the width and the height of the zipper lining? Okay, so you want to make sure that the width of the zipper lining is 2 inches wider than the width of the finished zipper that you want. Okay, if you want the width of your finished zipper to be 7 inches, then the width of your zipper lining should be 9 inches. All right, so whatever it is you want the finished width to be, you add 2 inches to it. Now, how do we determine the length? Now, for the length, you want to multiply the finished length that you want by 2 and you add 1 inch to it. Okay, so if you want the finished length to be, let's say, 4 inches, you multiply that by 2, that is 8 inches, plus 1 inches, that is 9 inches. Okay, because at the end of the day, this is what, or something like this is what we are going to have at the end of the day. Now, how do you determine the length of the zipper tape? I personally like, at least I like my zipper tape to be the width of the zipper lining. Okay, least, minimum, it should be the same width as the zipper lining. Okay, they should align on both ends. All right, so this is the wrong side of my zipper lining, this is the wrong side, and this is the right side. So on this wrong side, width wise, I am going to mark 1 inch from the top. So here is my 1 inch from the top marked into a horizontal line. Now from this 1 inch, I am going to go down from this line by half an inch. Okay, here we have our line, it is half an inch wide. Now I am going to mark the middle, so half of that is the middle, so that will be like a 1/4 inch inwards. So my lines are going all the way to the end, but yours do not have to go all the way to the end. Okay, so here we have 3 lines, this is what you should have. Now what I'm going to do next is that I am going to go in by 1 inch on both sides, because I know that this panel is 2 inches wider than my finished zipper. Okay, now if you don't want to go in by 1 inch on both sides, you are just going to mark your midpoints. So you are going to mark your midpoints, and if the width of your finished zipper, let's say, is 7 inches, you're going to mark 3.5 inches on both sides, okay, in order to form our box. But I am just going to go in by 1 inch on both sides. So here we have our box, so we do not need these corners. Okay, we only need from this point to this point. Please ignore this straight line. So now I am going to mark my snipping points. I am just going to draw in a rectangle on each side. A rectangle on each side about 3/8 of an inch in. to the middle line that we've got. Okay, you can use a ruler if you want, but I am just eyeballing this, and this is what we've got. Okay, so first let me mark the midpoints of the lining panel. So here I've got my midpoints. I am going to bring my main panel and I am going to mark my midpoint. So this is the back, this is the wrong side, because we want to have it centered, right? We want it centered. So here I've got my midpoint. Now concerning the measurements, you want to make sure that at the end, when you're done, when you want to stitch the side seam and the bottom seam, you want to make sure that your lining panel or your finished zipper panel does not interfere with the seams. Okay, so it is not interfering with the side seams and it is not interfering with the bottom seam. Okay, so maybe 3 inches from the bottom and about 2 inches from the sides, but the pattern or the bag you're working with will determine the width of your zipper panel. Okay, the heights in which you would place the lining panel down depends on the bag you're working on. It depends on the pattern you're working on. This is just for practical purposes, but whichever pattern you're working on will determine the length. Okay, so how far do I want to put this? Let's say I want to put this down about 1 inch. Okay, so we have our midpoint marked. I am just going to use my ruler to help me with that measurement. So let's say we want it centered about 1 inch from the top. So this is it. Next thing I am going to do is to pin in order to hold the panels in place. So I forgot to mention to you that these panels are right sides touching. So the right side of the base panel and the right side of the lining panel are touching. And now the next thing I am going to do is that I am going to sew on this box. So this line, we are going to follow this line. This is our guide, and we are going to sew a box. At this point, we can start from anywhere. So I'm just going to start from the middle. And when we sew, we want to make sure that our needle gets to the corner. Okay, you want to, if it's possible, and crank your machine to make sure that it enters the corner. So I'm just going to uncrank to make sure it is on that line. Now I'm not putting my needle all the way in, so I get a nice and sharp corner. So I am back on my work surface. This is what we've got. Now I am just going to cut open on this line. You can use your rotary cutter, but I'm just going to fold in half like so. And I am going to take up my scissors and I am going to cut on that line just to get me started. Okay, all right, so now we have our opening. I am going to cut not all the way, but to this point where the triangle head is. If you cut further than that, that is fine. So this is what we've got. So now I am going to take my snip and I am going to cut open. Now we are not going to cut on our stitches, okay? Just a little bit before we get to our stitch points. All right, so now that is done, I am also going to take my seam ripper to make sure that I get into the corner. Okay, so as you can see, I didn't get all the way to the corner, so I'm going to take my seam ripper like so, going to place it, and I am going to make sure that I get as close to the corner as possible. And notice that I flipped it to the back, okay? So that I have a proper view of what I am doing. Okay. This is what we've got, so close to the corners. Okay, so I am pretty satisfied with what we've got. Now, if you used foam stabilizer, at this point you want to make sure that you grade your seam. So you are going to take the main panel and you are going to trim off the excess right here because of the foam stabilizer in order to reduce the bulk. Okay, I am not using foam, so I am just going to go ahead to the next step. So we have our iron plugged. First, I am going to open up the stitches like so, and I am going to press. Going to do the same to the top. So let us flip this back like so. I used a big needle for this. I'm going to turn this to the wrong side. So I'm just going to adjust as I go. I'm going to flip this, press the top, and I'm going to flip it to the back. So we want to make sure all of them are to the back, then we can start adjusting. So please, you want to make sure that you're using a matching thread. As you can see, I have my threads showing because it is black, and I used a big needle. This is just for practical purposes. I am not using it on any bag, okay? So we're going to do that all around. We are going to make sure that we have this as hidden as much as we can. So we are just going to do it one at a time. Just pulling the lining panel to the back. Now at this side, you shouldn't have any puckerings or gathers or things like that. Even if you do, it should be on the wrong side of the lining and not the right side, okay? So the puckerings and gathers should be on the wrong side, not on the right side. All right, so I'm just going to continue. I am going to pull and press. Going to do the same for the bottom. You want to make sure that you're pulling as much as you can in order to reduce puckerings and gatherings. Okay. So I'm just going to check this from the front to see what we've got. Okay, I am pretty satisfied with what I've got right here. Now, if you used waterproof canvas, you can decide to tape or glue this down so that it lays flat. So additionally, I am going to add pins. I like to have my double-sided tape on the zipper tape and not on the base panel. And I am going to place the zipper tape on my work surface the way I like my zipper to open, which is from left to right. But if you want it the other way around, you are going to place it whichever way you want. Okay, so I'm just going to place it the way I want, like so, and this is going on top. Now remember, the lining and the zipper tape are the same length or width, so I'm just going to use my hands to feel the end of the zipper tape in order for it to align. Not remove the paper backing on the double-sided tape. I am going to open up the backing. So I have opened up the backing that I've got on the bottom side alone. So I am just going to do what I did from the onset. I am going to feel the ends of the zipper tape and the ends of the lining with my finger, this finger right here, and I am just going to place this, just center it from one side. So I am starting from my right hand side. From my right, I am going to go all the way to the left, and I am going to try as much as possible to center it. And this is what I have got. This zipper head is wide, but no problem. So now that I feel pretty satisfied, I am going to pin this down. That is that for the bottom. I am going to remove the paper backing for the top. So now the paper backing for the top is removed, and I am going to place this from right to left, and I am going to adjust the bottom. We want everything as centered as we possibly can. Just going to hold this corner. So what we are going to do is that we are going to flip the lining panel upwards, like so that it is against the zipper tape. We are going to flip this upwards like so, and we are going to sew. Okay, so you want to make sure that everything is straight and nothing is wonky. You want to make sure that the zipper lining is straight, right? Okay, this is flipped out of the way. Now we are going to be needing a zipper foot or something like this, and we are going to sew just on the bottom alone. Okay, we are not sewing all the way around because we will be sewing this in, so we are going to sew on the bottom alone. All right, now let me explain to you how we are going to sew. Now you see this point here, this corner. We are going to start our stitch one step away from this corner. Okay, we are going to sew, and we are going to end our stitch not on the corner but one stitch away from the corner. Okay, we are going to start and end like that. You can decide to back stitch or leave long thread tails, but if you are back stitching, make sure you're not doing it too much. So you just start here, go back, come back, and sew. Let's go to the sewing machine. I hope you all can see what we are doing. So this right here is our corner. We are going to put this down like so, right on that corner, like so. I hope you all can see what I'm doing. Okay, you guys are closer now. So like I said, right on that corner, I have my needle down. So I'm going to put my presser foot down. Take this away. I'm going to go one stitch in, like so. Pull up the reverse lever, one stitch back, another stitch back, like so, and I am going to sew straight. So I have gotten to that corner right there. I am going to go one stitch back, one stitch forward rather, I am going to go back and one stitch forward again to lock that in, and that is what we've got. I am going to remove my pins. So I am going to flip this back and I am going to press this in place. So now that that is done, this is what we've got. So I'm just going to bring this back like this. I'm going to clip the sides, pin rather. And now what I am going to do is that I am going to close both sides. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I am going to close both sides. Now you can decide to catch these triangle spots if you want, but I am not going to do that. So both our sides are closed. Now that my sides are done and I'm still here, I am going to finish up my box. So I am going to start from where the last stitch stops. Now I can see that the previous stitch is starting to unravel because I didn't lock it in properly. This side is not unraveling, but this side is. So I am going to start from that last stitch, like the second to the last stitch. I don't know if you guys can see what I am doing. So I'm just going to put my needle down like so. I'm going to put down my presser foot. Now you want to make sure that if your stitches are unraveling, that it doesn't go all the way, because at the end of the day you are going to stitch down your zipper pocket and you won't be able to use it, okay? So you want to make sure that you lock in your stitches properly. So I'm going to go one stitch outwards, one stitch back, and I am going to continue stitching. We just want to be one stitch away from that corner. Going to see, yeah, I think I'm fine with the way it is. Lift up my presser foot, pivot, and you know, if you're using a metal teeth, you know you want to uncrank your sewing machine so that you do not break your needle. So if you need to use the jumper at this point, please do. This is what we've got. This is the final result. It is not going to be perfect in your first try, not even your second, not even your third, sometimes not even your fourth, okay? So this is what we've got. This is what the back looks like. This is what I was saying. If your stitches unravel, you want to make sure that you're not sewing towards the inside of your pocket too much, because you are going to end up covering your pocket and you won't be able to use it. So this is the back. I am just going to trim the excess. Now after trimming, you are going to use your lighter to burn the edges of your zipper tape so that it doesn't unravel. My lighter is out of reach at this point. I am not going to go get it, but make sure to do so at this point. And this is the end. Please let me see your practice zipper pockets in the community, in Avajulis Craft community on Facebook. If you want to see more DIYs, please like, subscribe and share. This is our zipper pocket at the end of the day. Now for the length, because we folded twice, we have this fold right here. It's about ½ an inch, so you could add to the length. I'm talking about the length. So after you've doubled your finished pocket, times 2, you should add about 1.5 or 2 inches if you feel like it is going to end up too small. Okay, a quick tip before we end today's video: you see this point where the lining fabric is poking out? The best way to combat that or to hide that is to make sure that your lining fabric and your base fabric matches. Okay, so when they match, the poking out of the lining fabric is less obvious. As you can see, if this was a contrasting fabric, it would be more obvious. Okay, so practice this and tag us, post your practice in the Facebook community.